picture back on the screen, and we're going to go into the show. We're waiting for my co-host Rashid to join us, but if he doesn't join us, we'll still continue to go on. It shouldn't be a long show today. I just wanted to touch up on a few things that have transpired this week, and I want to go to something that I talked about. Excuse me, go this way. I want to just talk about a few things that I talked about this past week, and when I was talking with Rashid, my co-host, and we were talking about the U.S. policy and her arrogance and how she continues to double and triple down and quadruple down on failed policies. We see that America is collapsing. Hold on one second. Something just failed. The lighting just failed. Hold on one second. Okay, give me 1 second. The light. I'm asking my daughter to close this door and to tilt my lighting back up a little bit. I'm sorry, but things like that do happen. But as I was talking about things about the empire and her doubling and tripling and quadrupling down on failed policies. And in describing this, I told you that there was no difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. I continue to tell you that. I was saying that and saying that and saying that so that people could understand that those two are just two sides to the same coin. And you have one who is attracting the old guard, and you have one who is trying to push those who want to rebel into his camp so that they could still run both of them. He is a Manchurian candidate somewhat, he talks a good game, but his policies remain the same. And so it is with Joseph Biden. Now, the reason I brought that up is because an article came out this morning on Russia Today. And this article is titled, and I'm pulling it up right now so that you can understand what I'm saying. When I say stuff, you dismiss it, but then after I say it, other people say it, and then you take note of it. And I'm going to point that out on a few more occasions today. Okay, but here, the article's title is this: Iran sees no difference between Biden and Trump. Now, it says President Ibrahim Raisi has no interest in meeting his U.S. counterpart, Joe Biden. Iranian leader Ibrahim Raisi does not believe that a face-to-face conversation with President Biden on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in New York would be of any benefit to his country or could help revive the landmark 2015 nuclear deal. I don't think that such a meeting would happen. I don't believe having a meeting or a talk with him would be beneficial, Raisi told CBS reporter Leslie Stahl in a 60 Minutes interview set to air on Sunday. Both Raisi and Biden are set to address the UN next week, but a meeting between the two leaders was never officially on the agenda. I'm getting to something. I want you to pay close attention to this. Asked whether he could see any differences between the Biden administration and his predecessor, Donald Trump's, Raisi noted that from Tehran's perspective, there were none, particularly in regard to the nuclear deal formerly known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or the JCPOA. The new administration in the U.S., they claim that they are different from the Trump's administration, but we haven't witnessed any changes in reality. You see, this is President Raisi talking. He's being interviewed by the U.S. Media outlet CBS, and in this interview, he goes on to come to the conclusion that Brother Rashid and I had already told you about, that there is little to no difference between Biden and Trump. And let me read that again so that you can understand. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to read the last two paragraphs of this. Okay? He says, I don't think such a meeting, and he's talking about the supposed meeting between the president of Iran and the president of the United States. And the president of Iran says this: I don't think that such a meeting would happen. I don't believe having a meeting or a talk with him would be beneficial, Raisi told CBS reporter Leslie Stahl in a 60 Minutes interview set to air on Sunday. Both Raisi and Biden are set to address the UN next week, but a meeting between the two leaders was never officially on the agenda. Asked whether he could see any differences between the Biden administration and his predecessors, Donald Trump's. Raisi noted from Tehran's perspective, there were none, particularly in regards to the nuclear deal formerly known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or the JCPOA. And he's quoted as saying this right here. The new administration in the US, they claim that they are different from the Trump's administration, but we haven't witnessed any changes in reality. So when Rashid and I told you this a few days ago, the president of Iran is saying exactly what we said a few days ago, that these administrations show little to no different, and they use certain actors in politics to draw crowds to them in an effort to retain power. Okay. Now I see my co-host; he's on the show, and I'm going to bring him into the equation now. Hopefully, okay. How's it going today, Rashid? You hear me, Rashid? Let's see something. You hear me, Rashid? He's having problems with his voice. I mean his his microphone. Can you hear me? We're live on air. Can you hear me? You need to check your microphone. Okay, let's go back into this. Okay, so now we have proof that what we were saying is true. Now, this is not the only thing that when we say something, other people come back. I was watching a program yesterday from some very, very popular. What I'm hearing echo in the lines now. But we were watching. I was watching a program, a YouTube program that is very popular. And they have one of the I'm just going to take the earphones off for a second because I'm hearing a lot of feedback in it. But excuse me. We're here. If everybody would let me be patient with me, every time we start the show, we have problems like this. Here we go again. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to refresh the screen and come back into the platform so that this lag time could stop. All right. So give me 1 second, everybody who's watching. Just give me 1 second. All right. Let me refresh the screen. Can anyone hear me? Oh, man, I know. Rashid, I think that's your microphone. I think that's your microphone doing that. But anyway, there's always technical glitches or whatever that we're trying to overcome, but we'll still go with the show. All right. So listen, I do still hear a lot of feedback from my show. I hear a lot of it in my so listen to this. You hear it? I hear it too. But anyway, let me continue to go. So we were listening to this popular show. I was listening to this popular show. I see it. I can correct it. Hold on 1 second. I see what's the problem with you. Hold on 1 second. See, this is live on air and they're doing this stuff. Can't commute. Yes. Your mic isn't connected. Your mic isn't connected.
What about now?
Yes, I hear you good. You connected now. Now I'm going to finish my thought, and then we'll bring it in. You know how we always have problems trying to do the show, but we're gonna power through.
What about
Yes,
now?
I hear you. I hear you. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. So as I was saying to you all, um, I was watching this program. It's a very popular program. I won't name the name at this moment, but it's two guys. Each one of them individually have shows, and then they do a show together. They have roughly about, when you compare both platforms plus their main platform on YouTube, not their other platforms, but they have roughly about 500,000-600,000 subscribers or something like that. And they do a very, very good job of analyzing, and they do a very, very good job of talking about events. I give them their credit. Um, some things I think they should go in more depth, but maybe that's not their specialty. But so I'm watching them, and they were discussing certain things, and they were and this was their program live, and they were discussing a lot of things that Rashid and I had already discussed, and that we had already gone into, even to the point where he and I were talking, and we were talking about the situation in the former Soviet republics, and how Rashid asked me a question, and I answered and told that was America stoking tensions in the former Soviet republics as to weaken Russia and China, and also to push back against the rise of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And they came to the same conclusion a few days after we talked about it, and yet they have 500,000-600,000 subscribers. But that's just another thing that we talk to things, and we analyze stuff, and we show you prior to um, other people analyzing and coming to you, because you get it with us days ahead of time. Now, don't forget to check us out also Tuesday, same time at 12 noon Eastern time, I mean Central time, on this platform. We'll have former CIA analyst Larry C. Johnson on here. He's the editor in chief of Sonar 21 online. It's sonar21.com. He is he's a podcast host, and he's an author. We will have him on the show at 12 noon Central time. Okay. Now, Rashid, I've been waiting on you to get on the show. We've been having technical glitches, technical difficulties. Now that you're on the show, I don't want to hog the time. I want you to bring up a subject that you want to talk about real quick, so we can address it, and we can tie it back to some of the few things that I was able to talk about. Do you hear me? So let's see. Let's see. His microphone is messed up again. You have to you have to connect your microphone again. You disconnected your microphone. You you disconnected your microphone. Okay. Okay. Good. All right. So, and listen, and you got two older guys who are also trying to master technology, and so we're going to have these glitches. But up until he gets his microphone unmuted or whatever, um, um, we'll continue with the news. So let's see. So then you have that from Raisi, the president of Iran, talking about there's little to no difference between the Trump administration and the Biden administration. Now, if this is the case, okay, and you have heard it from a world leader, and not only did he say that, but in words similar to that, President Putin stated as much, right? So if you are having leaders, world leaders, I hear you now. I hear you. If you have world leaders stating these things that we have already come to that conclusion, then listen, why are the so-called Biden uh, people saying that they have come with change, and why are the Trump people saying that, oh, Trump, he's the end all to be all. Trump is for this. Trump is, if he gets back in office, he's going to do this and he's going to do that. And but people of a higher understanding, a higher learning in politics and geopolitics can see that these two are two sides of the same coin. You and Rashid, your mic is fixed. Your mic is fixed. So you can talk. I heard you. I heard you. Every time he connects himself, he disconnects himself. Rashid,
Every time I try to hook up,
I got you. I hear you. I hear you.
every time I try to, he say the microphone is not working.
It's work. He doesn't hear himself. So evidently, it's not his microphone. If he doesn't hear himself, then it's not his microphone. But anyway, until he gets that done, um, I hear you. We're going to address a few more things, and I hate when this happens a lot because this pushed the show further and further on, back, because then we have to cover a little bit more ground. And my microphone does that sometimes too. These programs on the computers and stuff do that. They do that. And we definitely have a lot of problems with StreamYard, and we have a lot of problems with YouTube. So that's nothing. That's nothing like out of the ordinary. But I want to address something. I think one is playing to its audience and the other is playing to their audience, and both of them are ruled by the same class of people who are against both audiences. They divide and rule to continue to maintain their power. They give you a face like Trump, who talks the good game, but if you look at his presidential promises, the stuff that he said that he would do when he was president, most of it he didn't do. Why is that? Because he is ruled by the same class of leaders that Biden is ruled by, the hidden hand behind the scene. This is American politics. This is American politics. And a lot of people don't want to see. First of all, you have to understand that American politics is corrupt. It's innately corrupt. And it's corrupt to the core. It's corrupt to the core. And when you have something that is corrupt to the core, to the very essence and being of it, you don't change the system. The system changes
Now
you.
I don't hear.
I hear you. I hear you. I hear you.
He said he can hear you. He could. Yeah, but it's not. I can't hear him through here.
So, again,
I can't hear
have you
anything.
seen how so many people said that they were going to get in the system and they were going to do this and they were going to do this and they were going to change the system and they were going to do this because when they ran on all of these marvelous platforms that I was going to do this and I was going to do that and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. As soon as they get into the system, 95% of what they said they were going to do never gets done. And then you start seeing them over time start bending and bowing to the system and making excuses why they haven't been able to do X, Y, and Z. And this would be something if it was just once or done by just a few politicians. But this is done over and over and over and over again. So it shows you that the system itself feeds upon the people who enter the system. There is no changing. When you have a system this corrupt, this unjust, this arrogant, this greedy for power and wealth, that it is willing to divide their own citizenry or is willing to start wars so that it can put money in the pocket of the MIC, the military industrial complex, or to put money in their pockets. It shows you that the system cannot be sustained and must be removed. Any integration into the system will corrupt the person who has integrated into the system because the system is too big, too entrenched, too powerful for that one person to just come and uproot it. Didn't Obama tell you he was going to do that? What happened to him? He started waging more wars than his predecessor, right? Did Obama say he was going to do X, Y, and Z and it never came to fruition? Why? Because the system was more powerful than him. Didn't all of his predecessors and all of the people after him too say the same, put out similar promises and never fulfill them? Why? It is exactly as Vladimir Putin said one time.
Okay,
He said,
that should be it.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you.
Okay,
Hold on
thank
one
you,
second.
baby.
Hold on.
Thank you.
I'm in mid thought. Hold on one second. Hold on. So it was one time, um, Vladimir Putin was talking. They was asking him about the elections, the U.S. elections, and the new person that was coming in. He said, and I'm paraphrasing. He said, U.S. presidents may have a good intentions to do this or to do that. He said, but once they are elected, men in black suits come up to them and tell them what they can and cannot do. Men in black suits come up to them and tell them what they can and cannot do. So you see an inherently corrupt, racist, greedy, and arrogant system. And if you integrate into that system, you will more than likely become a victim of the system. So the thing to do is to remove the system and start from scratch. That's common sense. You don't need an engineering degree. You don't need a political degree. You don't need a degree in political science. You don't need any of that. Common sense would dictate that. But more people today do not have common sense. Now, we have Rashid with us again after the microphones were messing up and stuff, and we apologize for all that, but we have to keep going with the show even as it's going, and we try to work out the bugs and the little episodes in the lapse of communication on the show. And now we have with us. Now, what's on your thought process today, Rashid?
Well, greetings to everyone.
Greetings.
And I had to call in the experts. Us old guys got to call in younger people when you can't
That's what I was telling them. That's what I was telling them. I said, you and I, we don't know anything about this stuff.
I have my cell phone. I hand it to my son and say, "Hook it up."
I do the same
So,
thing with my son.
so what would you? Let's go back over. What did you cover so far?
I was talking about Trump and Biden and the two different political divides and how they're two sides to the same coin. And I was refreshing people's memory or informing them about how Vladimir Putin also stated that that when the presidents come into office, how they may say they're going to do this or do that, but then when they get elected, men in black suits come up to them and tell them what they can and cannot do. And I also referred to Iranian President Raisi and how he said that the Iranian nation sees no difference in the policies of Trump or Biden.
I remember uh, Jimmy Carter when he came in office. I mean, after he left out of office, he said the managers of the local supermarket got more authority than him. I'm gonna hurt a lot of people's feelings, but what was that guy named Larry Summers? And I heard I was listening to a program about how they was treating Barack Obama. He would come in and at the beginning of the meeting, and he would say, "I want to do this, that, and the other," and they talk and going through the meeting, his advisors, and then at the end of the meeting, one person said, Larry Summers jumped up and said, "Well, Mr. President, we don't have a consensus to do that," and that was that what he wanted to do. The advisors lay out what he's going to do and what he does. And to many black people, if you suggest that Barack Obama don't have the power as what they think he has, then they'd be ready to fight you. But he was managed, just like
Right.
all of them are managed. They say one thing, and the advisors get together and tell them. That's how they see what's going on around the public. He's just a front man.
That's right.
That's all he is. He's just a front man. He's a presiding officer. Just stick him in the office and sit him down there, and he reads the script. The powers are, as they say, the powers that be behind the scene is the one that tell them what to do. He can't do no action. Even Trump. Although Trump is unmanageable, he goes off script a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell you one thing, he is the one that's going to bring down America. Let this election come in, and then if he win, he gonna tear up the country, and if he lose, he gonna tear up the country.
Yeah. So yeah, and as I said, when you have a system that's inherently racist, corrupt, and arrogant, that those are all the recipes for collapse, for fall. And if you integrate into a political system in such a way, you are dooming yourself to be fodder, cannon fodder for the system, or food for the system. This is what's crazy: the lower class, or the poor white people, and the black people, and the brown and the red and the yellow
The
people.
sheep,
They,
the
yeah,
sheep, the sheep.
the sheep. They actually believe that they can get into an office and change the direction of the country. They actually believe that they can get into the system and change the system, and they have this I would say this virgin sense of reality when it comes to the system. They believe all the propaganda that this is a democratic system. When all of these people who were once a part of the system comes out and tell you, hey, it doesn't work like that. Oh no, this is not really a democratic system. Oh no, this is not this, and the powers that be does this and this and this, and yet they still miss that, and they believe that I can become a senator, and then I'll become a senator, and I'll get a group of people to become senators, and then we'll vote on change, and we'll do this, and then we can get bag somebody to run for president, and over 20 years we can change the system. People have been saying that since the system started.
They've been saying that since Lincoln. Our people been voting since Lincoln. Has it ever worked out for you?
Yeah.
Even when they
So
put somebody with the looks, with your looks in office, come to find out, like as you said on last show, he's worse on you than the guys that don't look like him.
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it serves. It does not serve anybody that look like us purpose. All it is a game to manipulate the weak-minded and the simpletons. You
Yeah.
know, to use some political group that's going to do this and going to do that. He still have laws that he made in the 1890s or the 1810s or whatever. I think they had one. I was watching one program where he was talking about they're going to charge John Kerry when he was interfering with when he was meeting with what's the Iranian president, vice president, not the one now, but the previous one.
I know
John,
you're
remember
talking
John?
about.
And
Yeah.
what they did was George Bush got out of this Iranian agreement and was mad that Kerry was over there meeting with
You mean Trump got out of these? Trump.
Trump got out of it, and Kerry was still meeting with it, and they had some old obscure law in the I think it was made in 1804 that they wanted to charge. Trump wanted to charge Kerry with, and a lot of the other ones said, well, even with Trump, they said we can't do that. We can't do that. So it's nothing but a game, brother. And the quicker people realize that, the better off you will be. You don't have no power in his system. His system is made to crush the little people and always keep you on the bottom.
And you know what? And it's amazing you said that, because one time when I was interviewing, well, multiple times when I was interviewing Gregory Manarino, he said as much when he was talking about the financial class, and how it's a feudal system, and it's made to eat the poor, and to eat off of the poor, and keep the poor poor, and keep the rich rich. And the system is a system of debt. It's a monster. It issues debt on the back of the poor people, so that the rich people can continue to rule and live great.
And you never get rid of that debt. You like you said, based upon debt, then the one has all of the money. He ain't gonna give you none of that money to come and share up with him. No. What he gonna do is keep in his system is keep piling on to you. I was listening to an article with Michael Hudson, and he was talking about that Joe Biden comes from Delaware, where all of these laws, your credit card laws, are made, right? Even when
Right.
they so-called reform the tax system, Joe Biden had it put in that student debt cannot be written off.
That's right.
But a military industrial complex, they can spend hundreds of billions of dollars and never be called to account for it. Like he said, the banks did that in the 2008 collapse. Would they give the banks $700 billion? But the people that's
more
on
than that.
Main Street, more than that, the people on Main out in the public didn't get 1 cent. He kept the banks in charge, and all of these predatory, and what Michael Hutton said, most of the people that the predatory loans with these mortgages hurt were black people and Mexicans and poor whites. That's who it hurt. It didn't hurt no Bill Gates or nothing. Hell, he still got all his money, but you have nothing. And then
Right.
What's his name? Amazon guy. He said he got $200 billion. He got more political power to. Money to buy more political power, and you don't have any money to do that, so you can never be in his league. And then you running around here. Well, the white man and his votes, he used to buy votes in the 1800s. Everybody that gets go over here to, if you vote for me, I'll give you a drink or whatever. It's not based upon righteousness. It's based upon injustice. So basically, that's that. You can go.
So I'll reiterate this because you just laid more weight to what I was saying. The system, and mostly everybody will acknowledge this. The system is racist, it's corrupt, it's arrogant, right? And it is a parasite because it feeds off the miseries of the constituents or the citizens, right? So we are mostly everybody, whether regardless of class, regardless of color, regardless of culture or anything. Mostly everybody would agree with that. So those four things it will eat you up. So if that is the case, and we have seen year after year, decade after decade, generation after generation, the system not be changed inwardly, but the people who went into the system to try to change the system are the ones that get changed. That shows you that there's a need for a new system, because the system continues to prey on those who seeks to change the system. And there's no way that you can truly have justice in an unjust system. There's no way that you can truly build equality of wealth and equality of status when a system itself is the roadblock to that. There is no way that you can be a humble person in a system that is arrogant. It must be removed. And there is no way that you can offer a rational and viable plan to eradicate debt and eradicate poverty and eradicate medical problems when the system feeds upon the very debt that causes those problems. So the only way for the system to be changed is to uproot the system and get rid of it and start something altogether new. Here's the kicker. To do that, you have to also get rid of the people who are part of the system and who maintain the system. Because if you leave those and get rid of the system, what they will do is seep right back up to the forefront and rebuild that which they benefited from.
So what you're saying is revolution, and the guy on top, he ain't gonna let you kick him out of power. He gonna pull all of his might.
And you said the guy on top would not let you kick. And this is one of my points. Here it is. And this is the point I was trying to get to a lot of people who believe in Trump. Not that I love Joe Biden. I get on him the same way I get on Trump, the same way I get on Obama. I get on, when you're wrong, and I'm gonna point it out to you. I don't care. I'm apolitical. I care nothing about the political class or anything like that. But listen, if Trump is the beneficiary of the system, and he is a great beneficiary of the system. He rubbed elbows with the same people Hillary Clinton rubbed elbows with. We got pictures of
Matter,
them.
matter of fact, they were together before when Clinton was a
President.
president.
I mean,
Yeah, you got pictures of them hugging and smiling with one another.
and at the same parties.
That's right. It's a game. It
And
is the
so,
haves and the have-nots. Either
and
you
so
are the haves or
or
you're
you
the
don't.
have-nots. That's right.
Yeah. And see, he went bankrupt absolutely multiple times. He ripped off banks multiple times. He is not in jail. Why? Because he is a party to the system. That's what the system does. And for him to be talking this revolutionary talk, that is to siphon off the revolutionary people and keep them in his corner so that they can pacify them. This is what is going on. Trump is a pacification for the system. I'm telling you this. Just like Obama was a pacification for Black America. There's no difference. Barack Obama was a pacification for Black America. Trump is a pacification for those, and pretty much, I would say, white people who see their system slipping away from them and who have come to love the way that the system benefited them. And when they see Trump speaks to their fears, how they feel to be a minority, how they feel to be to lose position and power. But I wanna bring somebody common sense up to speed. Even when Obama was the president, the white majority, they didn't lose power.
That's right.
Why? Because there is this hidden government behind the scene that really runs everything. And this is something that needs to be said. See, they tiptoe around this. Black people, white people, everybody tiptoe around this. We hit it straight on the head. We don't care if it offends you. We talk about what's wrong in the ills in the Black community. We're gonna talk about what's wrong in the ills of white community. We don't care nothing about whether you disapprove of it. We're gonna give the truth straight, as we say, with no chaser. Now, let's go. Here's something I have to bring up. This has something to do with Ukraine. All right. First of all, man, listen. This is absolutely bananas, right? Okay. I want to say this right here that we know that a few days ago that Ukraine struck Russian territory. But we know that was the United States and NATO undercover, doing that with the Ukrainian uniforms on. We already know that, right?
Just like the ISIS uniform.
Yeah,
all
just like
ISIS.
Yeah. Hey, do you remember the time when the U.S. Special Forces guy was on the truck with the ISIS people and he forgot to let his sleeve down?
It's pull all his black mask, pull off all the stuff, and then he got a big U.S. Special Forces over here.
Yeah, U.S. Special Forces tattoo on him, right? But he's supposed to be ISIS
a jihadi.
Yeah. So this is the this is how they inundate you with this madness or something like this. And I mean, you probably won't be able to Google it because Google is a part of the
system.
The system. So you might have to try to find it on another platform. But the Special Forces guy forgot to let down his sleeve, and that's why you see all of these jihadis covering their faces and all of this stuff, because these are Western operatives, and what they do, they send a lot of them in to coerce dissatisfied people, and then they put the dissatisfied people to the front so it'll look like that it is from that area. But what it is a U.S. or UK or Western operation to destabilize those nations so that they can siphon off the resources, or to permit to forestall whatever government of whatever nation they're in really reaching for independence or serving the people of that land. So they use elements like Al Qaeda, ISIS, Boko Haram, and all of these other. These are CIA and NSA operatives.
If you do not agree with the American government, the next thing you know, ISIS come knocking at your door.
Yeah. And for the people who don't believe this,
come knocking at your door, huh?
And for the people who don't believe this, I call your memory back to when so-called ISIS was ransacking Iraq. Remember this? America
Iraq
and
and
ISIS
Syria.
was. No, I'm talking about Iraq because
Iraq,
first they
okay.
started in Iraq, then they moved over to Syria. Remember, they bypassed the U.S. bases. Remember, over there they bypassed and they hit all Iraqi bases. They bypassed all the U.S. bases and hit the
And with
Iraqi base. The U.S.
with the opposition, some of the Iranian foreign ministers was saying one time that the Iraqi, that Boko Haram and all of them, they never hit Israel. Can you imagine
Never,
that?
never.
Never. Not they haven't even thrown one rock over there.
Yeah.
Matter of fact,
And this is
Israel,
what I'm getting
when
to.
they get shot, they send them
They
to
go
the
to the Israeli
Israeli,
hospital. Yeah.
get fixed up, and sent back out to do it again.
And here and listen. And so they were if it was a U.S. base in the way, they go around the base. They hit the Iraqi bases and stuff. The United States had complete air dominance. Not one time bombed them. And then the Iraqi government was getting on the U.S. and the U.S. was not doing so. Russia gave Iraq some warplanes to start bombing from the air, start bombing the advancing forces. And General Soleimani went to Iraq and he devised a plan to outflank ISIS and then encircle different pockets of ISIS and then eliminate them. As that was happening, all of a sudden America was put her warplanes in the air, and then as she bombed ISIS, for every ISIS settlement she bombed, she makes a mistake every day and hit civilian targets and hit the so-called revolutionary forces who were fighting
Yeah.
ISIS in Iraq. Now check this out. So then ISIS spreads out across the border to Syria. The United States had, think about this. They can spot a dime. I want to bring this to your mind. They can spot a dime on the ground from space. A dime.
That's
They
right.
can do this. So they can see military formations just like they see Russian military formations right now in Ukraine and pass the intelligence over to their operatives in Ukraine. They saw the same thing in Syria. Not once did they come in and bomb ISIS. They say they were fighting ISIS, right? But not one time did they come in and bomb ISIS. Now check this out. I was telling Rashid when this was happening, I said, this is what is going to go on. America's going to use ISIS. Watch how they, because at this time, America was not had any bases in Syria. But I knew what was happening because I know how she works. The reason that America was not flying over Syrian skies because at the time Syria had a very respectable air defense system in different areas. So lo and behold, the first areas that ISIS was hitting was the air defense bases. Why? ISIS didn't have any planes. So why would that even be a strategic game for them? They were overrunning, like they were sending thousands upon thousands upon thousands, and they would lose thousands of troops, but because of wave after wave after wave, they would finally overrun these air defense bases. And once they removed those air defense bases, they were on their way to Damascus. Now, John Kerry said this, and other people in the U.S. administration said this. ISIS were what, 60 kilometers from Damascus, the capital, and Russia and Iran intervened. All of a sudden, America comes in and intervenes and start making air defense bases around northern Syria, securing the oil fields and stuff like this. But all this time, these months and that year beforehand, she had not intervened one time. So when Russia and Iran rolled back ISIS gains and pushed them back and was almost ready to obliterate the last remnants of it, the United States flew in and she took the credit for it. And then in her base, her illegal base in Al Tanuf in Syria on the border with Jordan,
Jordan.
they trained them there.
Yeah, that's
They
what they
trained
did.
them
They
at that
trained
base.
them.
Russia has bombed that base, that U.S. base, before. And Russia warned the United States that they would not allow those terrorist elements that they train over there to do a hit and run on them. And that's what ISIS was doing. And Russia started bombing. First, Russia started bombing around the base because the base, I want you to understand the arrogance of America. See, I'm explaining something to you so that you can understand this. And this is how corrupt and arrogant the system is. So America goes in without any mandate She didn't go in before ISIS hit the air defense bases. Now she didn't go in
I'm
before
the
ISIS
king.
took out those strategic areas that Syria needed to rebuff any invasion. Right? She didn't come in. She didn't bother to intervene when ISIS was about 50 to 60 kilometers from Damascus. No, it was only when Iran and Syria itself and Hezbollah and Russia rebuffed ISIS and pushed them all the way back and was about to destroy them. So she intervened to keep the remnants of them from being destroyed under the guise of fighting terror. So, and she intervened without Syria's um, invitation. Now, Iran was invited, Hezbollah was invited, and so was Russia. America and her allies are the only illegal entities there. And so not only did she do this, she took a strategic base, which is on Al Tanuf, which is on the border with Jordan and Syria, because they're trying to keep a Shiite crescent from forming from Iran, Iraq, through that area up into Syria. So what she did, she took the base, took that area, and then she herself unilaterally declared a 50-mile no-fly zone over that area. Now,
You got to
I want to
understand.
give you, I'm gonna make this point, and I want you to interject on this. Now, just imagine if Syria would have sent covert operatives here, and they would have bombed some building saying that they were fighting terrorists, and then they unilaterally declared that all of the U.S. Naval Air Station here in Pensacola, which is one of their most important bases here, there was a no-fly zone and nobody could fly over there. They would shoot it down. What do you think America's response to that would be?
Of course, they would have went to total war. But what I keep saying, as I said before, he considers himself the king or the ruler of the world, and I don't need your authority to do anything. If I see something I want, I take it.
Hmm.
Right now,
Mm-hmm.
you look at it. He gonna go over to Taiwan and tell Taiwan what to do. Would America like it if China came over here and started interfering in California,
Mm-hmm.
giving the people of California a bunch of weapons to fight against America? They wouldn't like it so well, would they? Same thing with Russia, right? What if they what if Russia came over here and destabilized America? Mexico, and then gave them hundreds of billions of dollars to fight against America. What do you think America would? That's what he can. That's his mindset. I'm the ruler. What do you call himself? The exceptional nation, right?
And
I,
look, and then Joe Biden gives a speech. See, this is what they do. They do this. They set up this straw man theory, and then they go and knock the straw man theory down as though they did something. Russia will face consequences if it uses weapons of mass destruction. Why would Russia even want to use weapons of mass destruction in Ukraine when they're shellacking the Ukrainian military and NATO forces? As a matter of fact, information that came to me about 3 o'clock this morning said that Russia bombed a base, a Blackwater mercenary base over there, that not only had mercenaries in there, but also had NATO officials up in there, and I mean level part of it to the ground with hundreds of them in there. Now, so that is something. But again, Russia better not use weapons of mass destruction. Now we have evidence, irrefutable evidence. One time when I interviewed two-time former Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney, and she was talking and she was telling me that because she went to Libya before the war took place, before NATO uh, openly got involved in the war. They were already involved, but I'm talking about openly and publicly.
they the one that started it.
I was asked to come on that fact finding commission with Cynthia. She asked me to come on that, but I had another engagement. So and I wish to God I would have went there because it was a whole slew of people that I could have interviewed and and would have had it for history's sake. I would have had a lot of interviews like Muammar Gaddafi, his children. I would have had all of those interviews, but something I had something prior that I could not make it. But she told me that there was evidence that the United States was using low yield uh, nuclear grade uranium and plutonium in Libya. Also, there's no doubt that she was using it in Iraq, and there's no doubt that she was using it in Afghanistan. Those are nuclear weapons. They might not be of the scale that most people are talking about, but the United States and NATO's um, military used depleted uranium. They've used it in Iraq dozens of times. And listen to this: Iraq's birth defects are huge now. Look at
it is
Afghanistan; they're
hideous.
suffering major birth defects
It
over
is
there.
hideous. It is hideous.
And they telling
But they
Russia not to use
they don't
nuclear weapons.
but they don't have the American news media where the guys sit up and talk about it. Oh, dare they better not do this. But time out, Mr. American, who gave you the right to say who can and who can't have nuclear weapons? If you get one nuclear weapon, we will bomb you. What how many do you got? I only got 10,000 of them. But if you get one, you'll kill every last one of you. You see the way his mind thinks. He is the Christian Bible describes this man.
Yeah.
He is a man who claims to be of Jesus, but he's not of Jesus. Like we said before, Pompeo, Mike Pompeo, right?
Yeah.
The Secretary of State. He sits up there and tell you he's a liar, a cheat, a murderer, and a thief. But yet and still he go to church every day.
Yeah. Matter of fact, hold on. We're going to play that again to make that point go home, because I want to finish my thought on this situation with this nuclear weapons and stuff. Now, and what's crazy about it is this. The generals of the United States have already come to the conclusion that they can't beat Russia on the battlefield. They know that militarily. They listen to me good. They know this. It was crazy. But the empire must give off this air of arrogance that she is confident in her military capabilities. So she brings up a issue that is not even an issue. Russia better not use weapons of mass destruction or biological weapons. Isn't it you, sir, that had biological weapons labs all over Ukraine and testing it on the Slavic population and on genes that come from Asian people, so that you could see how to tailor a disease specifically for these people? Isn't that you? So you can do that, right? But Russia better not do it. Man, you don't get the hell out of here, man.
Isn't it you, the one who used nuclear weapons? Nobody else on the planet has done that.
Hold on. Not only did she use it, she used it twice. I'm talking about the major nuclear weapons. She bombed Nagasaki and Hiroshima, right? Two uses of the most destructive types of nuclear weapon. Now, she uses low yield nukes and depleted uranium on the battlefield. She tells you that. These are banned armaments. Banned armaments. Because they cause radiation poisoning, radiation sickness. They cause birth defects. They inundate the ground and contaminate the ground and the water for hundreds and hundreds of years. Yes, her and NATO have billions of rounds of depleted uranium that they fire when they go into war. Now, that is a form of chemical and nuclear warfare.
It was banned by everybody except him. I ain't banning anything.
And by the way, since you said that comes to my mind. And I don't. This is the same ploy she used against Libya, Iraq, and she used it against Syria, and now she's using it against Russia. But the difference with Russia is you just can't handle Russia any kind of way, because Russia has the military wherewithal to hit you back just as hard as you hit them. But my thing is, look at the ploy that she used to go into Libya. They're killing their people, and Muammar Gaddafi, you better not use weapons of mass destruction, even though they had already known that Gaddafi gave up his nuclear ambitions years before, and even turned over the nuclear sites to the UN inspection team. They even knew this. Hold on. What about in Iraq? They waited for Scott Ritter to come back with the report saying that it has been verified that Iraq no longer has any WMD. Immediately after that, they had no word for Iraq. They wanted to go in and bomb. Okay, now look,
that
it's Syria.
wait a minute.
This is a pattern. Syria had given up its weapons when the United States had used terrorist acts in there and used what is it, ammonium or something like that. And so Syria gave up its last vestiges of biological and chemical warfare. It was, and most people have a short memory, right, that preceded the war. They gave up their last things that his father wouldn't have given up. Now, Assad's father wouldn't have given that up. But
His father was tough.
but Assad gave up the last vestige of the one thing that kept the United States and Israel at bay. And so immediately after that, ISIS rolled in. The United States gave ISIS Western weapons, and ISIS rolls in and start trying to balkanize Syria and stuff. And notice this, as Rashid said, just one thing: they never hit Israel. They never fired upon a U.S. military bases, and she has dozens of them over there. And yet they claim that they are for. And you can hear him screaming, "Allahu Akbar!" You can hear him screaming, "Oh, yeah, God is great!" And yet they go and every war that they have is against a Muslim. I want you to think about the significance of that.
That is for the little bitty guy. You know, like you said, they come in and the one who giving this paying their salary, he ain't saying that, right? Mm-hmm. He might say it behind the scenes. That's why you send all of them up. First of all, he make the nation poor, and then he get the poor people together and then put them as cannon fodder out there for the do the fighting for them. But what they said, this al-Baghdadi, supposed to be the leader of some of ISIS, they traced his lineage and what he did. He's an Israeli citizen.
Mm-hmm.
now he sits up here and tells everybody, once you to give up your stuff, then he attack. You ain't got no more nuclear weapons. I mean,
chemical weapons.
Chemical weapons and stuff. No, attack. That's the way he is. If you don't have the strength to fight him off, then he comes. Mm-hmm. But like you say, Russia can get in his butt,
mm-hmm.
and he can't just act any kind of way with Russia. He gotta restrain himself. Once again, as we were saying before, Russia do not want to fight Ukraine. But he got the Nazis over there that's running the government, and they're going to do everything they can to push war on Russia. Like when America comes to go to war with Libya, Syria, Iraq, she bombs the power plants, bombs the water stations, power plants, the water plants. She tears up the society. Russia, as long as she's been fighting Ukraine, haven't done that yet. She did it a little bit, but Russia could take out all of the power plants, and then Ukraine wouldn't have one train to bring any soldiers to the front. You begin to think, why don't you do it? Because she don't want to hurt the people. But the empire, that's her mode of operandi. Bomb everybody, and then see what's who's left after we send in our planes and bomb you for about 3 months.
Yeah, that's her modus of operandi. Yes, you better believe that. And it still amazes me that people are so short-sighted and that they let this stuff get pushed to the back recesses of their mind, and then they go hook, line, and sinker with the propaganda of the empire. You know, it's amazing. We talk about Syria, and we talk about Iraq, and we talk about Libya, and America's hand is. This shows you the connectivity of the government with the media. when the media and the so-called professional journalists refuse to bring up points that are that go directly to the core of America's wars of aggression. This shows you that they are either paid for by the government or they're in cahoots with the government. Because we're talking about the massive loss of life here. We're talking about the like this. I have to bring this up. So recently, over the last few years, and RT has a. I have to bring this up. RT, they have been involved in this also. There has been a mass influx, as they say, of immigrants or refugees from North Africa to Europe. Now, whenever RT uh, talks about it or have an article, they have black refugees going into Europe. But the mass majority of those refugees that go into Europe because of North Africa are Arab refugees, right? But they don't show that. This is what I'm saying to you. Um,
How he
you
can manipulate the media.
yeah, they manipulate the media, they manipulate the minds of the people. But listen, I'm getting to a point here about this. Now, all you hear is the European Commission and the European government and the European people screaming about mass illegal immigration and how these people are coming into and it's changing the cultural makeup and the political makeup of the system and they want it to stop. It would have never happened if you had not bombed the institutions of those nations. We remember that Muammar Gaddafi gave a speech and he warned the West that he stood at the gate stopping the influx of refugees in Europe. And he said that if he were to be taken out or removed, then the floodgates would be open and these people would flood across into Europe because of the European military involvement in these nations. And I have to make this point clear: when America bombs these nations, when Europe bombs these nations, they bomb the institutions that keeps a state viable. They bomb the institution that keeps any nation a nation. Look at what they did to Libya, and they're still paying for it right now with the influx of refugees. They don't talk about the cause; they just talk about the problem.
And
If
and the one that's in front of the call.
hold on 1 second, and now if we go to medical practices, if someone is diagnosed with cancer, the doctors and the scientists go in and try to look at what was the cause of that. Why? Because understanding the cause will help them understand the cure. And then they can make a viable cure for the disease that is ravaging the body. Well, the Western world, they go in and they pillage, they rob, they steal, they divide, they bomb, they occupy. And then when it's blowback of refugees overflowing the borders, all they complain about is the refugees. All they complain about is the illegality of the refugees crossing the border. They didn't complain about the illegalities of the war or the weapons used in the war. They don't go uh, at the root cause of the problem. All they do is address that they are having a problem. They never associate their wars of aggression, their destabilizing programs, their color revolution, their assassination programs, their military bases there. They never associate that with the problems that are now plaguing Europe and America. It's always somebody else. It's never them. They can always point the finger. There's a saying that when you point the finger at somebody, 3 to 4 is pointing back at you, right? So they never address those deep inherent problems, but they can always blame somebody. They can always do so. And I know you had something to say. Go ahead.
It's the same thing, brother. As you were saying, that's how he has a hidden hand. He say one thing and do another, and that's once again, that is the nature of these people. They love to lie on other people. Okay, we was talking about that earlier about um, okay. What about the SCO meeting? What do you got to say about that?
Before I do that, I just remembered I have to play the clip we played on the last show. Remember we said we was gonna play it so that people can hear Mike Pompeo, who was the Secretary of State and who was the director of the CIA. I have to play this again because some people who didn't watch the show a few days ago can see it right now. See what Mike Pompeo say. It's the stated policy of the CIA. Now, listen, if that's the stated policy of the CIA and the CIA represents the United States, then guess what that is? That's the stated policy of the United States in the Western world. Because the CIA works hand in hand with the BND, the German BND, French intelligence, the MI5 and the MI6, and all of these other so-called intelligence agencies, right?
Mossad, Mossad.
Mossad. So if this is the inherent and innate policy of the CIA, it is the inherent policy of the American Republic, and it's the inherent policy of the Western world because America calls the shots with Europe. Okay, so listen to what he has to say.
When I was a cadet, what's the cadet motto at West Point? You will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It was like we had entire training courses. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment.
So he equated the lying, the stealing, and cheating with the experiment called America. So what he is saying is that was in the DNA of America. He said, "Yeah, we were taught not to do this, but hey, I was CIA director. That's all we did, and we had entire training courses on how to do that." Man, I tell you what, you can't make this stuff up. You cannot make this stuff up.
So now, once again, would Jesus do that? even Mossad, right? What are their slogan is? Through deception, we will wage war.
That's right.
Now, would a man of God use deception? Or people of God? They telling you who they are. They are the opposite of righteousness.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go around all around the world, you look deeply into the troublemaking, and that's he's the one that's behind it.
Yeah. And so I tell you, I'm going to play another clip before we go into, and this will show the American, the situation economically, and this will give you a reason why America does what she's doing. She's backed in the corner now. People are exiting the dollar left and right. You have a NATO ally, Turkey, who has now, for the first time publicly, said that they have every intention on joining the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. But beforehand, they only flirted with it. Beforehand, they only hinted at it. Just at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting or gathering a few days ago, a day or so ago, President Tayyip Recep Erdogan openly declared Turkey's intentions to becoming a full and complete member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Isn't that amazing? That means everybody is looking east and no longer looking west.
Not only Turkey, but Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, everybody, Myanmar, Argentina, and Belarus,
Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil wants to seek observer status. It's like a host of other countries. I mean, the floodgates are open. And what this
everybody wants to get over to the Shanghai Corporation, and America gets Sweden and Finland, two European countries. Other than that, nobody else around the world want to join NATO.
So that tells you the viability of the system of the West. And it shows us that the Western world is in utter decline. And this is why, again, we go back to something. I didn't lose my thought. This is why she's so mad. This is why she's waging war. I want you to think about this. Any sane or rational person would not openly wage war with their banker. Any sane or rational person would not wage a twofold war with their peers, knowing that you have war gamed both scenarios with both peers and you've lost on both accounts. Yet you continue to provoke and stir up and think about this. And at the same time, you are destabilizing African nations, South American nations, right? And some Asian nations. I'm not even talking about China at the time. I'm just talking about these African nations, the South American nations, and some Asian nations. And most people don't even know that the collectiveness of these African nations that America is destabilizing, and these South American nations or Latin Americans that they're destabilizing, and these smaller powered Asian nations that America is destabilizing, they account for 40% of the debt buying of America. These nations together accumulate 35 to 40% of the debt of America. That means that these same nations are funding America's escapades. And to alienate these nations, they're going to drop the debt. And if they drop the debt, the markets crash. If the markets crash, the dollar declines. If the dollar declines, the military gets rolled back because there's no funding for the military industrial complex. And yet the American military industrial complex and their political leaders are so arrogant that they don't even see it. They cannot even comprehend or understand this simple thing.
Sergei Glazunov and the Asian Union are trying, they're trying to set up a ultimate reserve currency. What they are saying is they're telling those countries, don't pay any of the debt.
Yes, that's right.
Come join us and don't pay all that debt that he got. Just file bankruptcy. Don't pay nothing. Do what he done all of these years.
Yeah. And that's what he does. Didn't he do that when he occupied all? I just inflate, and they're still saying that Keynesian. We'll just inflate the debt away. Meaning, I'm not going to pay the debt. I'm not worried about paying my debts. So why should other people worry about paying their debts to you?
Occupy Wall Street. That's what I was thinking about the other day. Didn't they get rid of those guys real fast under Obama?
Yes.
They talking about this, that, and other. Yeah, swept that under the rug. And the American media is owned by 6 companies. They're all in lockstep. If you are a part of the media and say anything that they don't like, the example is Julian Assange. You see what they done to him. That's somebody that's telling the truth. Huh?
And what about the black agent that they did the same thing to, but nobody ever talks about?
Yeah, that guy. Yeah.
They all talk about Assange, but they don't talk about the black whistleblower. And he was languishing in prison, and his wife, who happens to be Caucasian, was telling the media, why don't y'all focus on him? Why are y'all focusing on Assange all the time and nobody's saying anything about my husband in prison? And he blew the whistle on a whole bunch of things that were illegal by the U.S. government.
But Julian Assange showed the world about how they was over there in Iraq with those WikiLeaks emails in Iraq, shooting innocent people, women and children. And even when an ambulance come over there to get somebody that's shot, they shot them too. Even shot a couple of their journalists. It showed that his empire, true face. The mask had been pulled off. He is not some benevolent, nice-looking guy. He is a hideous monster.
Yes.
And that's what and if you tell the truth, that's what can happen you in the empire, telling the truth on the empire.
Yeah.
It's serious repercussions it will come to you for telling the truth on the empire.
Yeah. I want to read
And so
something.
they'll make everybody else say, well, look what happened to him. I ain't gonna say nothing. Unless you want to be in prison for 100 billion years.
So
you better shut your mouth.
So we were you asked the question about the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and we weaved in Turkey and Turkey's move, but we didn't talk about the sanctions that America and Europe are now trying to put on Turkey or whatever for her move to bypass the dollar and exact trade with Russia, and also to accept the Russian Mir card. Now I want to say this: the Russian Mir card is being accepted across the globe now in different areas, not completely, but in certain spots in Latin America, certain spots in the Middle East, certain spots in Africa, and certain spots in Central Asia, and certain spots in the Caucasus or the Baltics or whatever. Now, it is also tied to the Union Pay system and China's CIPS or CHIP system, which is a rival to the US and European dominated global system called SWIFT. Right? And what SWIFT is a system of banks that do money changes or exchanges in dollars and in euros, and that's how America gets to monitor other people's movements in their economy, because they can see where money was transferred to and how much money was transferred to. So they target as sanctions over here. This is how they want to weaken you. They go over there and they say, cut the dollar off. It's no longer whatever they transferred over there. We're not accepting their dollars back. This is how they do. So even in that, they default on debt. But I want to get to something. Again, the rational thinker says 93 to 97% of all of the goods on my shelves come from my next door neighbor. I mean, my neighbor across the street. Okay. My neighbor across the street also helps fund my power bill, my water bill, my car note, my house note, my taxes on my land, all that, to the tune of $1.3 trillion. Tell me how sound is the thinking to sanction and to provoke my neighbor that lives across the street when they have done nothing but helped maintain my lifestyle. That, to me, when you put it like that, you show people the insanity of the U.S. leadership. Now I want to read something. This is an article on RT, and it's called "Here's the Real Reason That the U.S. Wants to Sanction China." Okay, so you got to bear with me. This is the first time I read the article. I scanned it when Rashid was talking, and I'm going to read it for the first time on the air with you. This article was published yesterday. Okay, and it says, the headlines is, "Here's the real reason the U.S. wants to sanction China." And it reads like this: Washington's modus operandi, which Rashid and I often say on this show, and now it is becoming mainstream to say it again. Washington's modus operandi is create problem, blame target country, impose sanctions, expand influence. What? My God, is that not what we've been saying, Rashid? Cause problems with the country, blame that country that you cause problems with, impose sanctions on that country that you started to mess with, and then expand your influence and try to get everybody else to rally around you. Which, and I'm going to finish reading this, but I want you to think about this, because this goes right to the heart of something Rashid said on one of our shows about how America is always clamoring about what Russia gives to her allies or what China gives to her allies. Yet she justifies every missile, bullet, warship, warplane, radar, air defense system, or gunship that she gives to those who she claimed to be her allies. So it's all right for you to give, but it's not all right for them to give to their allies, which is a part of their national security, to defend their national security. If they do that, I'm going to sanction you. But you can do it. But people don't realize what that is. What America does in this occasion of when she sanctions Russia or she sanctions nations from buying Russian equipment, what she's doing is she's trying to push Russians' weapons out of the market so that America can gain a stranglehold
Now is
on the
that
market so that she can feed the military and industrial complex that must be fed at all costs. That's what the sanctions are for, to scare nations away. And they say, well, I really don't have no alternative but to buy U.S. weapons, and then America can tell you what to do with them, how to use them, and if you don't do them, I'm not going to supply you with the spare parts or the technology that you need to upgrade them.
and
So
he always
constant, it's a
hollering
constant
about
supply
being,
of weapons. Huh?
and he's always hollering about open markets.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let's a fair playing field where we can sit up there and see that we going to fair markets to allow you to have your put out your goods and I put out my goods, and then we see who's the best goods and the best one should win. Wait,
Right.
that ain't what he's doing in this instance. In this instance, he's taking over the whole market. He's skewing everything in his favor. And I was talking about what you were talking about, the monetary system. What the money got his face on it, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
not your money. Even the money that Saudi Arabia got is not his. Do you see anybody in Saudi Arabia on the dollar bill? That's their money. And they put it out, and you got to go back to what we were saying before. It's the coldest scheme on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
You can't
Yeah.
think of anybody as a big as crook as these guys. I come over to your country, and you got all that oil over there, and I'm gonna give you these
Paper.
dollar bills with my face on it in lieu of trillions of barrels of oil, and say it's okay. It's all that oil is worth these dollar bills. And this instant you do something that I don't like,
I sanction you.
yeah, I say all that money I gave you
It's worth
is
nothing.
no good. You can't use it. No way. So naturally, that's gonna be where you never get out of line, right? You ain't gonna ever say any or do anything, or else I'll sanction you, or like what he did in Venezuela. That gold had to be in Venezuela before Hugo Chavez came in. He gonna seize all of it. 300 tons of gold. He gonna seize all of it, and then say some little puppet that he jumped that he appointed. Who the president is? Well, I appointed this guy the other day, and say he got control of it. You gotta give it to him. Barnum and Bailey would have to take his hat off to this. And what he said, a sucker born every minute.
Yeah. It's a circus. It's a political circus. This is a geopolitical circus. But and so I'm going to go further on this article because I like the first paragraph of it or the first sentence of it because all it did was mimic what we have been saying. But it says Washington's modus operandi is create problem, blame target country, impose sanctions, expand influence. The U.S. is considering sanctioning China as a deterrent from attacking Taiwan, according to media reports. Stop right there. You don't hold China's debt. China holds your debt. So if you sanction China and you say, well, I'm not paying the debt, China can say, okay, you don't have to pay it. You get no more goods. Now, where are your goods going to come from? Because all of your manufacturing is over there. See, that lets you know that they have not thought. They're thinking irrationally. They're thinking through emotions and not through sound policy or something. It is breathtaking to see these people so panicked that a non-Western or non-white nation is rising and that is not under the thumb of the Western ruling class. And so they are doing this, as I say, they're cutting off their nose and their ears and their tongue in spite of their face. It is absolutely astounding at the breathtaking speed that America is in a downward spiral. I mean, for anybody who's watching this, who has sound or rational thinking, you can see that these are irrational policies. When a nation has 1.3 trillion dollars of your debt, produces 93 to 97% of all goods on the stores, and you're going through inflation. There's an explosion of debt. There's an explosion of homelessness. There's an explosion of hunger in your country, and you're gonna alienate the one country that stood by and just funded your government because you
And you
fear
can't
them rising above you.
and you can't sit up there and make the goods that the country you gonna thank you. How many television sets can America make? How many iPhones can America make? How many computers can America make? Your lamps, your clocks, how many? Everything come from them. Nothing. You didn't deindustrialize yourself. You can't make nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But what they gonna try to do is they got these think tank guys and these smoke-filled think tanks. And China have to send us their goods, or they'll go broke if they don't come over here and give us their goods. Now, bear in mind, the money that you pay the China for is worthless. If China was smart, they would stop sending you goods because he ain't gonna ever get it back.
Listen, I'm glad you brought that up, because before I read any further, I'm gonna address that. I addressed that one time on Blog Talk Radio. I addressed that point right there about, because most people see that like that. And they say, because I used to see it like that. I say, why would China continue to do this? Why would it's insane? They're losing money. But then I looked further and deeper, and I saw something. Sometimes you have to suffer a loss in a battle or two on the battlefield to win the entire war. Sometimes you have to take setbacks on the battlefield for your whole war plan to be successful. Hence, you see what happens in Russia with Russia and Ukraine. They took a setback in one area, then they seized a whole swath of important strategic areas in another area. So when it comes to what China has done and continue to ship goods over to the United States and receive dollars in return, they hedged their bets. I'm gonna tell you what I mean by that. They understood the irrational thinking of the U.S. policymakers. So China is a very patient nation. So what they did, they bided their time. They said, okay, we know that when America gets mad, she nullifies her debts, or she tries to wage war, or try to justify before the world why she is pulling out of paying her debts. So what China did was hedge her bet. Why? By taking the IOUs or the U.S. Treasury bonds. I don't think that they're holding the $1.3 trillion. I don't believe that. But it looks like that on the books. So what China has done, and this would bear me witness to what I'm saying, they have invested in Africa infrastructure projects. They've invested in South America, Latin America in infrastructure projects. They've invested in Russia and Central Asia and all around Asia in infrastructure projects. Well, how do you fund those projects? You fund them in dollars, right? So they have used the dollars, but on the books, it looks like China is holding $1.2 trillion. But also, you have to look at this. China saw what was going on, and they started the Shanghai Gold Exchange. And once they retook Macau, and once they retook Hong Kong, they also have flooded those markets with gold, and the gold had been taken and put into the central the central government's coffers, and it mostly all Chinese owned gold. Now I'm talking about the individuals, and the government owns gold, and they own silver, and they have been filling up all of their strategic reserves of copper, iron, all kind of ores, everything, anticipating the day when they have to go face to face with the United States, and the United States pull their nuclear card out and say, hey, we're nullifying your $1.2 trillion debt or $1.3 trillion debt. Okay. And China can say, you know what? We no longer accept the dollar. So what happens then? There's a stampede out of the dollar. But China has hedged its bet because gold goes up, silver goes up, commodities goes up. So even though they've lost money on this end, which was money wasn't really worth nothing, think about all of the investments of that money in infrastructure projects and ports and shipping and train stations all around the globe that they have. Those are assets to offset the losses to the United States nullifying the dollar. And to give you a good example of that, when Russia enticed America and Europe to seize some of their foreign assets, that was an enticement. That was not done without Vladimir Putin and his team knowing. They knew that this was going to happen. So what did they do? They hedged their bets at home. And so they offset the $300 million that was stolen from them in losses. And guess what Vladimir Putin did? And it never makes the news. He signed a bill and he had a committee created that did a study on U.S. and Western investments in Russia. And they came up with between 350 million to 650 billion in investment from the U.S. and European Union. So he signed that bill saying that money cannot be taken out of Russia without a signed presidential decree. And he froze the exact amount of money that they stole from Russia. 300 and some million dollars. That cannot be taken out of Russia, period. So Russia hedged this bet knowing that what Russia was trying to do is expose America for her thievery. And this was done in conjunction with China. And we know that China is the real target. So don't you think China, being a long thinker in the long game, was thinking about all of these things and strategically hedged their bets against all of that? So when you look at it like this, you can actually see why China did what China did and why China is doing what China is doing. You get it?
So China and Russia, they're hoarding gold now. What if some of them say they got about 150 tons of 1,000 tons of gold?
There was Peter Schiff and about 24 other investors. They said when you put the gold that goes through Macau, the gold that goes through the Hong Kong, and the gold that the Chinese mine, which they don't let out the country, and the gold that the Chinese, because the Chinese will come and say they only have 1,000 tons of gold. See that's that Sun Tzu stuff.
Yeah.
Hide your capabilities until time. So they said, oh, we only have 1,000 tons of gold. But when these forensic economists did their analysis on the situation, they said they believe that China has between 30 and 40,000 tons of gold that they're not talking about. And if there's a great collapse, China has hedged its bet with 30 to 40,000 tons of gold, and you know gold will be revalued after the collapse of the dollar.
Jim Willie said that they was talking to him about the gold in Fort Knox. He said we got a couple of buckets of gold coins over there. Even Paul Craig Roberts was. I listened to an interview. He was talking to somebody, and he was saying that China has gold, the most gold. And he was saying, well, what about us? He said, all of our gold is in China.
Mm-hmm.
All of it.
In America, in the West, the reason they still have some gold is because they lease gold from one nation to the next nation. That's how they continue to be able to put gold out. And remember the time when they were caught trading with tungsten? Remember that?
And anytime they go and defeat a country, that's the first thing they take.
Yep.
Gold.
Yep. I'm going to put something on the screen for the people to see. Hopefully, let's see. Share. Let me see if I still know how to do this. Share screen. Share screen. Give me 1 second. Here we go. Share. It should be on the screen right now. All right. Here's an article right there. China and Russia have amassed 40,000 tons of gold as Putin dominates geopolitically. They have amassed 40,000 tons of gold.
And remember, gold is real money. That precious metal that is rare, not some printed up paper with your face on it. That's real money. Been real money for thousands of years.
So yeah. So what is going on is the rules-based order is suffering. It's short-circuiting out, and the leaders who have benefited from this, they're enraged because they no longer control the global financial scene or the global political scene. And we see this is why the Western world continues to do the provoking, just like this thing says up at the top. Washington's modus operandi is to create problems, blame target nation, impose sanctions, and expand influence. Now, that works on smaller nations. But how can you do that with your banker, China? How can you do that with your commodities banker, Russia? How can you do that with military peers, Russia and China? You just can't go over there and overrun them. You just can't bomb them with impunity. You can't threaten to destroy them without them saying, hey, you do what you got to do. But remember, what comes this way will come back your way. So they cannot do that. China hid her strength. She built up her military along with her economic power because she saw what happened to nations who built up their economic power and had no military power behind it. So she built up her military power and she bit her tongue when America overstepped her bounds with China. And they smiled and they were humble. That's not the case anymore. China is ready to take America on head on because economically she's more powerful. Politically, she has more allies. And militarily, she's her military peer now. So we're looking at the change, a tectonic or a global strategic change. There's a shift going on from west to east that most people don't know about. So I want to stay on this subject real quick because I want to play a clip. I want to finish reading this article, but I want to play a clip from an interview that we had on this program from the late Professor Dennis Etler, and how we talked about the so-called rules-based order. This is the U.S.-led, Western-run, Western-dominated, rules-based, or what they call international order, which is amazing because the Western world, America, Canada, all right, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, only comprise a small portion of the world. And anybody else they consider to be second tier, third tier, fourth tier.
About
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. I tell you, but listen to Dennis Etler and as we talk on this situation about this rules-based order, and we're gonna come to the same conclusion about what is really meant about this rules-based order and what it really means and how they're splicing words because this is a racist order. I want you to listen close to this. Now, I want to play something for you, and I'm going to do it off my phone because I notice whenever I play a clip on StreamYard or YouTube, the volume is so low, and I don't know why they do that because it's not just my show that does that. It's on multiple shows. So I want you to hear something. This is from Press TV. Let me put it to this. This is from Press TV.
Sure.
And I'm going to play something. It's about 1 minute and 21 seconds. And I want you to listen to Jens Stoltenberg, the NATO Secretary General, or what he has to say. And before I play it, I like to inform people that when you hear Joe Biden or Donald Trump, or you hear Stoltenberg, or you hear Macron, or any of these people talk about a rules-based order, they're not talking about an international order with rules for everyone that the same rules. They're talking about a rules-based order where the Western world dominates and the Western world dictates what everybody else should do. So everyone who will be listening to this should understand that. As when we play this later, when this interview goes live later. I want people to understand that the rules-based order is not an order, international order of everybody plays by the same rules. It is a order where the Western world, that is NATO, Europe, and America, dictates to everyone else, and everyone else plays by the rules that are given to them by the West. Would you agree with that?
Oh, of course, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to play this minute and 21 seconds, and after that, I want to pick your brain on what you hear in this. To me, it was a desperate plea or a desperate call to try to save a declining order. So I just want you to hear this. Here we are. It's getting. Hold on one second. I think. Hold on. Here we are. Hold on one second. All right, here we are. Well,
China and Russia are trying to rewrite the rules of the road to benefit their own interests. The rise of China is a defining issue for the transatlantic community, with potential consequences for our security, our prosperity, and our way of life. This is why NATO should deepen our relationships with close partners like Australia and Japan, and fortunate ones around the world. Your vision for the future. Defending our rules-based orders starts by defending our values at home. We must recommit to our values, strengthen our democracies, and protect our institutions. Because ultimately, this is what makes us who we are. We also need to invest to maintain our technological edge. We now have an historic opportunity to build a stronger alliance, to regain trust, and to reinforce our unity. Europe and North America working together in NATO, in strategic solidarity. Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary General.
Now, he talked about China and Russia being a growing threat to the international rules-based quote-unquote order, and how remember, he didn't say South America, he didn't say Central America, he didn't say the Caribbean, he didn't say Africa, he didn't say Asia. He said Europe and North America working together to enforce whatever, quote unquote, their culture or whatever. I'm paraphrasing now. Their culture, their institutions. Isn't that racist in itself? I mean most people don't get that. Isn't that racist in itself?
All it is reframing, their, colonial policies of the past. You can't come out and use the racist rhetoric of the 19th century any longer. I mean, that's passé. You got to sugarcoat it. You got to obfuscate it. But that same rules-based order is the rules-based order of European colonialism and American imperialism. That's all it is.
So that was the late, great Professor Dennis Etler. And we had multiple shows with him, but also we were supposed to have a show with him a few days before he passed. But that came to my mind as I'm talking about, as Rashid is bringing up this rules-based order. And I thought I would share that with you, how we talk to scholars, and even scholars have come to the conclusion that this is doublespeak. This is racist, inherently racist, when they talk about the global order or the international order, excluding the vast majority of the population of the planet Earth. And all they talk about is Europe, in the United States, in Canada, and Australia, and New Zealand. Go ahead. I know you want to say something.
They had the Chinese, one of the Chinese, it's not the foreign minister, but one of the spokesmen, put up a map. You remember
I saw that.
Yeah. The what do you call it? The international community is a little small on the map, America and Europe, and the vast majority of the world, it don't matter. Okay,
Yeah.
let's go
What is
to
talking to?
let's go to the Shanghai Cooperation. What did they come to, and are they coming up with this alternate reserve currency yet? Have you heard it?
Mm. All right. Yeah, I heard it. Go ahead. I want you to talk for a second. I'm doing something. I'm answering an email about what we're talking about right now. It's an email. So yeah, you can talk on it, and then I'll interject in just a second.
Yeah, well, what I'm trying to say is the Shanghai Cooperation, the BRICS, the Asian Union, Economic Union, they're all coming in to take over the world's economy from Europe, and Europe is not going to stand for that. That's the reason why she needs war. She needs war to solidify her position, because does not want to take a second step to no man. Once you are in the riding the rulership of the planet, you're not going to take a second seat to somebody else and get off the horse and let somebody else ride. You never get back on there. So this is why she's doing everything she can to stay on top. She have to, like you were saying before, she have to continue to ferment destable countries and cause wars. Because if she don't, she'll get overtaken. And that's basically what she have to do that. She
Yeah,
like you said, she going after China. Yeah, that's the
that's
whole
it.
entire world for America, for the
And for
rules-based order.
the people who are seeing this map up here, this was by Li Zhao, who is a spokesman for the Foreign Ministry of China, and he put up a map of what America and Europe considers the international community, and it is Canada, the United States, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan.
And
That's it.
Japan is a second rate because she controls Japan, which
Yes,
Japan is an occupied country.
that's
Same
right.
thing with Germany. It's an occupied. They have to do what the empire tells them to do. They all of the leadership is puppet is owned, and they got thousands of troops inside Germany and Japan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the empire never leaves. And the Japanese, you control the Japanese government. You control the German government, don't you? No, they're sovereign countries. If they're sovereign countries, then what you got all them troops in their country for?
That's right. Yeah. Now I want to before we because this goes along the Shanghai Cooperation line. I want to finish this article about the U.S. and China because it goes along with what you were just talking about. So now we go to the heart of the article where it starts really talking, and it says the U.S. is considering sanctioning China as a deterrent from attacking Taiwan, according to media reports. Washington always justifies economic sanctions by evoking a military or security threat against either the U.S. or any one of its allies. Then it actively works to prove the legitimacy of the threat or to create the illusion thereof. One such instance involved House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taipei over the summer, which was a gratuitous provocation of China at a time when the U.S. is actively involved in arming, training, and funding fighters against Russia in the Ukraine conflict. This same blueprint for ramping up tensions against Washington's geopolitical foes have been used all over the world, from Latin America to the Middle East. The formula is simple: find and support opposition groups or governments, either within the target countries or on their border, who are willing to do Washington's bidding in exchange for benefits or promises thereof. If the target country reacts, it's qualified by the West as a crackdown or an attack, both of which conveniently open the door for the deployment of various tools in the Western arsenal for global hegemony or hegemony, excuse me. all in the name of defending freedom, democracy, and human rights, of course. Washington officials were fully aware that Pelosi's trip to Taiwan ran a high risk of eliciting a military response from China. Any such reaction would have been exploited by the West, which Beijing undoubtedly understood when it refused to take the bait. But that hasn't stopped the US from forging ahead anyway and considering punitive sanctions against, as though China's restraint hasn't just been tested and proven, or that other official that official US policy didn't in fact officially recognize that Taiwan is indeed part of China. Washington seems intent on leveraging its long-standing defense agreements to sell weapons to Taipei to make it look as though Taiwan is a separate country that needs to defend itself against China, when in reality, it is not recognized as a sovereign nation by the United Nations, the US, or international law. And now Washington is building the narrative that Taiwan is the new Ukraine, the scrappy little guy standing up to the giant next door who needs Captain America to come to his rescue. Those optics have allowed Washington to sell $1.1 billion worth of weapons to Taiwan in the wake of the previous $2.37 billion order in 2020 that has yet to be fulfilled as part of a $14 billion backlog. President Joe Biden's administration is reportedly also working on a sanction package that would hit the Chinese consumer technology manufacturing sector. Stop right there for a minute. I want to bring something up on this. I wanted to address this earlier, but I got sidetracked saying something else on this Chinese technology sector. And then I'll finish the article. Now, say for instance, China was to go to war with the United States. It's coming though, over Taiwan. China has now become self-sufficient in producing chips. As a matter of fact, they now produce, and albeit on a small scale, more powerful chips than the United States produces. They now do it. You can Google it. Now check this out. The largest chip producer is Taiwan, right? If China is self-sufficient in the chip production, that is, and it is selling chips to Russia and North Korea and Iran and other nations. If China is independent in that market, and then a war breaks out and China seizes back Taiwan, which is the largest chip manufacturer and the largest supplier of chips globally, and America sanctions China, what does the technological environment look like from that point on in America and the West? No microwaves, no TVs, no computers, no washing machines, no dryers, no more building homes, though the newer homes, the energy efficient homes, no solar power panels, right? No solar systems, no solar batteries, no wind power. All of that has its origins and root in China and Taiwan, which is one and the same. So to sanction China and then to go to war with China would mean America signing her own death warrant for the Western world when it comes to technological power and technology and independence in that field. That is absolutely insanity in every way that you can think about it. But let's go further. It says President Joe Biden is reportedly also working on a sanction package that would hit the Chinese consumer technology manufacturing sector, according to Reuters, citing the complexities of global supply chain entanglements with the U.S. economy. It seems that sanctions are always the end game for Washington, in the same way that foreign military intervention are ultimately about boosting the U.S. economy through the military-industrial complex or the eventual implementation of U.S. economic interests. Sanctions also tilt the global economic playing field in Washington's favor. I just told you all that. If you sanction Russia's weapons, then in Russia and you sanction China's weapons, and these two are roughly independent in producing advanced weaponry, who are you left with? America and French, and a lot of French technology has U.S. chips in it or U.S. know-how in it. So they have to get approval from the United States. So that still empowers the military-industrial complex and the powers that be. So let's go further. Sanctions also tilt the global economic playing field in Washington's favor by deterring nations whose companies do business with the U.S. or in U.S. dollars from engaging with U.S. sanctioned companies or countries. Even the EU, a close ally, routinely finds itself having to abandon trade relationships or ambitions with Russia, Iran, and Cuba, for example, as a result of U.S. sanctions pressure. You know what this is? This is America applying her national laws in a supernatural way, a supranational way, I should say, trying to force everybody to bow to U.S. laws. That's crazy. That's insanity. You're saying that every nation is sovereign, but the sovereignty is to a certain extent. Because when I get mad at you, I sanction you, and I impose U.S. law on Russia, on China, on Africa. Do you see the arrogance and the racism in that? Do you
Once
not?
again, I'm king. Russia, China, all the rest of them are the barons up under the king. And that's the mentality he has. I allow you to sell me all those goods. I allow you to build up your economy. And if I choose, I can shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
I can stop. I'll sanction you.
Yeah.
You do anything, but have anybody ever seen anybody sanction America for anything?
China just did. China just did a few days ago. China sanctioned Boeing. China sanctioned what are the other Raytheon? China sanctioned
wait a minute.
Other companies.
Wait a minute. That somehow escaped CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC and ABC and NBC. They didn't report that. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Anytime they're going to sanction somebody, he's sanctioning them. And it spread it all over the place. But when somebody do it to him, they don't even report it.
And Russia, 2 weeks ago, Russia sanctioned a whole bunch of U.S. officials and companies also. So now America is getting a taste of what she's dished out to so many people. But let's go further because this paragraph is like 1, 2, 3, 4 more paragraphs that I have to read to end this article. And it's a good article now that we're reading it. Listen to what it says. The impact of anti-China sanctions on the EU would be devastating, particularly in light of the economic blow that the bloc has already taken from anti-Russian sanctions slapped on it on cheap Russian. It's supposed to say on its, but it says it. It's a misspelling. On its own cheap Russian energy supply as a result of being egged on by Washington to stand in solidarity with Ukraine. China is one of Germany's top customers. China is one of Germany's top customers. Let me say that again. China is one of Germany's top customers. And Berlin is already facing near deindustrialization as a result of the anti-Russian sanctions impact on its industrial sector. Washington has previously issued exemptions to its own restrictions for American entities. Now, they'll if it benefits the American companies, they offer exemptions. But anybody else, they don't offer the exemptions. They say we sanction them. If you do that, we're going to sanction you. But listen to what it says. It says, for instance, even in the case of its sanctions on Moscow, the U.S. is issuing a number of authorized transaction notices and general licenses to shield some corporate targets from the harsh economic measures contained in the sanctions, according to a LexisNexis report. But the path to any such U.S. sanction exemption for foreign entities is less clear. See, this is to give the United States the advantage in trade, to give it the advantage in competing on the international level, industrially, technologically. This is that's what the sanctions are for, and to give the dollar a little grace period. But let's go further. It says, In the case of Russian oil, for example, the EU is dependent on the good graces of Washington if it wants to keep importing US sanctioned Russian fuel. So basically, Washington can use the restrictions to control and dictate trade to the EU and beyond. Extra national US policy. She is putting her laws on everybody else. And then she's willing to go to war to keep her laws as the laws over all of other nations' national laws. She goes further and says, unless, of course, enough countries get fed up with it and seek out an alternative system, which is exactly what seems to be evolving in the wake of the West's Ukraine-related sanctions with Russia, China, Iran, and the global South, deepening cooperation that could ultimately bypass the Western financial sphere. This is why she's fighting. That's key right there. That part right there is key. I'm gonna read that part again. It says, so basically, Washington can use the restrictions to control and dictate trade in the EU and beyond, unless, of course, enough countries get fed up with it and seek out an alternative system, which is exactly what seems to be evolving in the wake of the West's Ukraine-related sanctions and with Russia, China, Iran, and the global South, deepening cooperation that could ultimately bypass the Western financial sphere. The SIPs, the CHIPS, the Union Pay, the MIR cards, the global basket of currencies, the BRIC banks, the AAIB, the yuan being the currency of choice for the Eurasian Economic Union, the ruble being the currency of choice in bilateral swap between Russia and its commodities with other nations that are close friends, and excuse me, the yuan also being the currency of choice in trade between Russia and China. They are bypassing the Western financial sphere. What is the Western financial sphere? The dollar, and by extension, the pound, sterling, and the euro. These
and the
three
yen,
control,
and the yen, and the yen.
and the yen. But the yen is part of the basket. But the yen, most Western nations don't even bother with the yen. So I didn't bother to say that because we
So
know
they're also
when we say
ran,
the
huh?
yen. Listen, when
So
we
they
say the yen, we
also
got to talk
ran, huh?
about the dollar
Okay.
because America runs Japan. So we just
Japan.
bypass the yen at this moment. Okay.
Okay.
So those three main currencies are being bypassed by what? By Russia, China, Iran, and the global South. What is the global South? The global South comprises 80% of the population of the planet Earth. You understand? So let's go a little further when we're about to end this article, and we'll close out the show soon too. But listen, it says it's hardly surprising that the China sanctions that comes in the wake of the U.S. State Department visit to Mexico City this month to pitch Mexican semiconductor manufacturing as part of a $50 billion investment that would facilitate U.S. independence from the approximate $1 billion worth of semiconductors that America imports annually from China. What she's trying to do is bribe Mexico because Mexico is in the corners of the global South and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the Eurasian Economic Union and the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative of China. So she's trying to offer stuff that she really can't afford at the time and hold out promises of a future thing so that she can try to free herself from her total dependence on Chinese semiconductors. Now check this out. You sanction China's chip industry. You're dependent on China's semiconductors. How do you think that's going to work out? Huh? So let's end this. Let's read the last two sentences of this article. It says, the U.S. is working to secure its own interests, as every country should. It's clearly willing to pull out every stop to maximize its global competitiveness. Perhaps one of these days, its allies will start following suit and doing strictly what's best for themselves and their own citizens, even if it means diversifying their interests away from Washington. That's the article. These are people, and let me tell you who it's written by. It's written by Rachel Marson. She's a columnist, a political strategist, and host of an independently produced talk show in French and English. So now they're talking on the matter of the world bypassing the dollar, moving away from U.S. dominance and U.S. influence and U.S. dictates. All of this is a byproduct of arrogant U.S. policies. That is what it is. What say you?
It's about time. It's like the world is waking up to him and his unfair policies. That's what it looks like. It's like everybody else is finally the light bulb has came on, and they're saying, why should I let him rule when he ain't got nothing? Why should I let you dictate when you get everything from me? We said before that all Russia had to do is cut off Europe from gas, and Europe would. Oh, looking at an article a few minutes ago, it said the first snow has hit Ukraine. Winter is coming.
Mm-hmm. And think about all those rosy pictures that America had. We'll ship liquefied gas. We'll make up for the difference. And now America's saying there's no way we can make up for the difference. Oh, but wait a minute. You made us do this. You set us in this position, and now we're stuck.
Well, as the old saying goes, when you stupid enough to believe me, then I'm smart enough to do it to you. So it's gonna be a cold time in old Europe this winter.
Yeah, and I want to play this clip. This is the older clip. This is by Scott Ritter, but what he's saying has everything to do with what we're talking about how America sanctions nations and how she destabilizes people. She's doing it to maintain her sway. This is about a minute. I want you to pay close attention to this if they allow us to play.
Well, I mean, there's a question of what are they doing and what are they able to do? What do they want to do and what are they able to do?
Right.
Look, there's no question that the United States provoked a confrontation, a conflict in Ukraine. No question. There's literally no debate about it. It was our irresponsible push for the expansion of NATO, combined with a counter reset policy. I mean, I remind everybody of the reset policy that was implemented by, or at least attempted to be implemented by the Obama administration in 2009, the famous or infamous red button. Change policy, promote the political fortunes of Dmitry Medvedev and sink Vladimir Putin. When that didn't work, the United States went into overdrive to destabilize Vladimir Putin, supporting people like Navalny, bringing about the 2014 Maidan coup.
Now we're going to something else. Now listen to this from a Chinese scholar. Listen to this.
U.S. Global hegemony, the global dominance, or global leadership, according to their narrative. And they see that their hegemony is now being challenged on two fronts. On the European front, because of the strength or resilience of Russia. And then, of course, particularly in the Asia Pacific, they see that their hegemony is being challenged by a near-peer competitor. Near-peer means both in not only in the military, but also in the economy and geopolitics. So that's why the United States wants to use the NATO framework and try to extend it to Asia Pacific. But the problem is that the formation of NATO was initially for European security, especially against Russia. But asking the European countries to spend riches and blood and fortune to faraway lands in the Asia Pacific when they are not under a direct threat, a military threat from China, is kind of problematic. Of course, the NATO members will play along with it, but only insofar as they're paying lip service. Don't forget, the Asia Pacific is thousands of miles away from the European countries.
So in this, Andrew Luong said that America's hegemony or hegemonic prowess is being challenged in two theaters. One in Europe by Russia's power and resilience, right? America didn't, they thought that Russia was still a ragtag army with backward weapons. And now they're realizing that they done bit off a little bit more than they can chew up in there. And the second theater of where she's being challenged at is in the Asia Pacific. And he specifically said these words that we constantly tell y'all on this show. He said, she's being challenged not only with a near peer power as China, but economically, militarily, and geopolitically by China. And this is what is enraging America. Go ahead, go say what you have to say, man. We're about to close out anyhow.
I forgot my train of thought. Go on.
Well, what do you have to say about that? What you just heard?
Yeah, well, it just shows you never hear the empire talk about the other point of view. That's why you have to get news outside of America. You only hear the one side of CNN and Fox News and MSNBC and ABC. That's one-sided. That's all it is. The Ukraine army is defeating Russia. Oh, it's not defeating. You got to go outside of America to get up. Anytime you're going to judge something, you got to get both sides. And America, the news is unwatchable now. I thought that America had supposed to had broke away from England 200 something years ago, right? That's all you hear is about the Queen.
Yeah.
It dominated on American news.
Right.
That's it as if she was the queen over America.
Right. Remember what we said, that America and England are tied to the hip. Just like England and Canada, just like England and Australia, just like England and New Zealand, they're tied to the hip. Don't believe that stuff that they tell you in these books that they write. They fancy up and write, oh, America broke away from England and America is this dominant power. Then why are you both always on the same page?
His brother, isn't it interesting that the great British prime minister mother was English? I mean, mother was from America.
Yeah.
Right.
Or what about Boris Johnson? The former prime minister who just stepped down. Boris Johnson, I think he was born in New York, and he lived in back and forth from the United States to England.
Winston Churchill's mother was from America.
So
the same people.
The same.
But they can play that Mutt and Jeff game. I'm over here, and the other guy over here can say, I'm different than him, and they live in the same house together.
Well, listen, everyone. On that note, we're about to close out. We'd like to thank you all for giving us 2 hours and 15 minutes of your time. It's been a wonderful show. As always, I always love to converse with my good brother Rashid. This is Rashid, and that's Rashid. And we always have a very wonderful time. We agree on 99.9% of everything that goes on because our vision has been open wide to see things that the average person just take for granted or does not pay attention to. We'd like to thank you for joining us. Always remember, seek truth no matter what. Do good even if no one's looking at you, right? And try to be righteous because that's the only thing that's going to get you out of here. Because what's coming, as a matter of fact, before we go, let me play something. Before we go, this is a small clip. Let me look here. Listen to James Diamond. I call him one of the greatest economic terrorists in the history of the world. The leader of Goldman Sachs. I want you to listen to what he said is coming, and he makes no bones about it.
It's a hurricane. Right now it's kind of sunny. Things are doing fine. Everyone thinks the Fed can handle this. That hurricane is right out there down the road coming our way. We just don't know if it's a minor one or Superstorm Sandy or Sandy or Andrew or something like that. And it's you better brace yourself.
You see what? He's talking to his colleagues about this coming economic and political, geopolitical storm, hurricane that's just over the horizon. And he's telling them to brace yourself, stop your spending, stop being extravagant, stop and start being a little frugal, because what's coming is going to wipe most people out economically, and there's going to be a large loss of life. I remember, in closing, I'm going to say this, on one of the shows, on one of the times I had the financial guru, we had Gregory Manarino on. And Gregory Manarino says that what is going to take place in America and around the world will be tantamount to a global nuclear war. He said it is going to be massive loss of life when the economy finally implodes, excuse me. And he said that this will be biblical. The amount of loss of life would be worse than any nuclear exchange. This is what Gregory Manarino was talking about, because he did the numbers and he looked at the debt situation, and he did his analytics, and he came to the conclusion that what is approaching America first and the world in general will be cataclysmic. So I think that you better prepare yourself, get your heart right, always be stayed in God, the true and living God. That's the only way out in that circle of safety, with a God who's well able to save you and me. Because what is just over the horizon is going to devastate America and devastate the world. And on that note, we close out the same way we came in, with love, with sincerity, and with an undying passion for you to know the truth. Mama, I love you.